Welcome everybody to the Stay on Course podcast. Today I have Britain and Taya, and Britain is an equine practitioner, clinician, and Western media contributor who supports performance horses and educates riders through biomechanics and horsemanship. She shares Western heritage through journalism, live presentation, clinics, and her podcast, Uncinched, helping build community across the horse industry. And Taya is a horse trainer from Alberta. She's the owner of Quality Equine, and she trains horses and teach riders of all ages. She's a coach for the Calgary Stampede show rider team and a podcast co-host and lifelong learner dedicating to helping both horses and riders grow. And today, we're going to talk about leadership from the saddle, ingredients for success that we learn from horses, because horses teach us leadership, which is built on trust, awareness, and clear communications. And those same ingredients create success in business and life. And we're going to have an amazing conversation. Welcome to the Stay on Course podcast.
Oh, we're so excited to be here.
Thank you for having us.
I know, and what a quite an amazing introduction. We're going to talk about horses today. I'm so excited about this. I really am. But before I get started, I just have to ask you both, what is your favorite food?
Hey, you go first.
Well, I'm a true Alberta cowgirl through and through, so I'm definitely going to say my favorite food is steak.
Nice. Yes.
For me, I would have to say, going with my Ukrainian roots, it would be pierogies.
Oh,
for
yes.
sure.
Yes.
Oh, I love pierogies. And it's like lunchtime.
good.
It's lunchtime here. And now I want steak and pierogies. So
That would be a good meal.
Yeah, that would be a
very
great meal.
combo, yeah.
Steak and pierogies, good meal. Well, I'm so excited to have you. We met at Podfest.
Yes.
And you know what? All I needed to see were the hats. You guys are both wearing cowboy hats. And I'm like, well, that's so different. Nobody else was wearing cowboy hats. And, that's a conversation starter in itself. So I'm excited to have you both on and really get into this discussion. Before we get started into the, what we're learning from horses, tell me about your podcast.
Our podcast is called Uncinched, and it is about the multifaceted world of horses. And if you know anything about horses, they use a cinch to put pressure in and keep the saddle up. So what we're doing is we're uncinching and taking that pressure off the horse world. And so being able to have those conversations with people, whether it's in different realms of the horse world for racing, Western, English, all different aspects, as well as having barn education where it's like, hey, this is what's happened with, the digestive system. And I mentioned that because that's our latest episode, and talking about, why it's important to know what's going on with your horse's digestive system and what you can commonly see with them.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about ingredients for success and things that we learned from horses as far as leadership and what you guys have seen because you're working with horses every day. Where do you want to start the conversation?
Good gosh. I mean, we could jump right into it. There's a couple things that you mentioned in your intro about some themes that kind of go around horses, and those were a couple of things that I wrote down. So like right off the bat, consistency and trust is a huge part of what we do with horses or equines, whatever you want to call them. And I feel like that is such a deep integral part of like being a successful business owner as well, is kind of building your consistency and your trust with whether it's your horse, your clients, people in your life. Maybe that's where we can kind of start.
Yeah, like let's talk about that. So consistency and trust. How do you build trust with the horse when you first meet a horse?
Great question.
That's a really great question. I mean, horses are like people in the sense that they're all different. They all have their own individual personalities. They have their likes, they have their dislikes, and some horses can be fairly untrustworthy and some horses can be more trustworthy. It kind of depends on their experience. I guess I've worked with a lot of horses because that's what I do for work. I'm a professional horse trainer. So, I mean, as far as that goes, horses are prey animals, and building trust with them already with that natural instinct of they want to kind of escape pressure more than I guess a human would. You really have to like go down deep into your work and into yourself and kind of like look at it from your horse's perspective. They think that you're going to eat them. Like that's what their instincts tell them, and that's what's kept them here this long throughout
Wow.
the history of life. So, just I think starting off with that perspective of like, okay, this animal isn't trying to be disobedient, it's not trying to be bad, it's not trying to, have those human emotions where they are lazy or they don't want to work. Like they're genuinely scared of you. So having a presence that's welcoming, friendly, showing up consistently is a huge part of that. Trust is built over time.
Yeah.
And it's not just built over, showing up every day. It's showing up with intention every single day and giving them a positive experience. And I mean, regardless of the horse's background, whether they're a more, I guess, simple, like less worrisome or less fearful in that like instinctual regard, like you still have to show up positively and consistently in order to like get things accomplished with them. And then same thing with a horse who's really distrusting. You have to show up even more positively and even more consistently so that you can kind of get somewhere with them. But without being consistent and without being giving them a positive experience, you're really kind of going nowhere with them.
Wow.
Yeah. I think if you were to talk about it, stress is a predator, essentially. So, how you can translate that to humans is when you are a leader and somebody is underneath you and they're feeling a lot of stress, it causes anxiety and it feels kind of like that predator is after you. And so, you have to build a rapport with your, team and being able to translate that and saying, like, when they are feeling those feelings that they come to you and express that, not hide it, and then it bubbles and manifests into different weird ways.
And
Yeah.
you want to have them seek your guidance and your
Yes.
leadership to take away that stress, pressure, anxiety. And that's what working with horses is
Yep.
being that person.
I'm thinking about this because I've heard that leadership teams go
Yeah.
to work with horses to learn about leadership. Do you guys facilitate some of those events
Yep.
for leaders?
Yeah, I've never, I mean, I don't know about, I can't speak on your behalf, but I've never like spearheaded one of those events, but I have been a part of one where I've like brought my own horse and we kind of it was like a corporate team build event and
Yeah.
we all went to this ranch outside of Calgary where we're from and we had like each of us had a team of I think 5 or 6 different people, and we brought a horse along, and we worked on building leadership skills. And half of these people, I mean, they're corporate people. They don't have any business touching horses or any time to touch
Yeah.
horses. So it was kind of neat to like, when you're person to person, it's easy to like kind of overpower others, but when you're with a horse you see them and you're like, yeah, they're big creatures, but it's not until you're like right up beside them that you're like, oh my gosh, am I gonna bully this creature into submitting and listening to me, or like do I have to actually be strategic on how I communicate? And that was what our whole team build was about, was just how do I communicate with the horse in a safe way.
I've been a
okay?
part of that too, but in a bit of a different sense. I used to work someplace where we did a lot of like programming for disadvantaged kids or adults who may have ended up in the system and now trying to retrain, coping skills and communication skills and stuff like that. And so, you can swear all you want at a horse. It's not going to really respond to you. And so being able to kind of teach through that. So learning leadership and without bullying, was kind of something that we did a few things. Or there was also another program where it was kids who had disabilities and teaching them kind of how to be able to have, better communication skills if they have, autism or Down syndrome, things like that through horses. So I've been a part of more that kind of style leadership more than the corporate. I'm always down to get more into corporate though. I think that's always fun.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lane in there to teach horse to teach leadership or to give them some team building activities
Yeah.
around horses. I'm yet to think about like what would that look like from a leadership coaching standpoint. But I think the more that I learn about what you're telling me as far as what am I learning from horses, I think that would help. You know, one of the things that I am thinking about, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, is as it relates to the horse, is ballroom dancing.
Mm.
Oh, yes, that makes sense because it's a steps and you have to trust each other to move
Yes.
together.
Mm.
That's totally makes
Hmm.
sense.
That's what I'm thinking about because in ballroom dancing, especially as the woman, I'm the follower, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in some instances with the horse, who's the leader, who's the follower is
Hmm.
it
Yes.
sort of needs to be established.
Hmm.
So when you ride a horse, who is the leader and who is the follower?
Well, it depends on your situation sometimes, to be completely honest with you. You should be most of the time the leader, but it is a give and take. It's like a seesaw, is like how I would like to describe it. Sometimes, let's say if you're riding in the mountains, you may not sense predators. You may not sense things that are going on around you or the ground because you're not the one walking, you're the one on the horse. You don't know how the ground actually is feeling, and in those moments, I like to let my horse take over if they know the situation better, because they are going to lead me to the right path. They're going to do the right footing, keep us safe. And if I keep on holding those reins and I keep on trying to take that control the whole time, I can actually put us in a worse situation. Whereas on the other hand, if they get really fearful of something, it's my job to try and take that time to slow down, get that nervous system back regulated, and set them up for success for the next step they have. So I think that's the same with leaders. Sometimes you have to have that give and take, and you have to be in a trusting
Hmm. You have to trust your
relationship.
partner. You have
Yeah.
to trust your partner.
Just like if you're dancing, because
Yeah.
I'm really bad. I already know this. I'm bad for trying to lead, and um, we have a lot of two-step in here, and I usually end up leading it because I think I know better. But it's something that I need to get better at, is sometimes letting go of that control and letting somebody else guide me and let me feel safe about it, because
Yeah.
that's ultimately the thing. It's safety for human and horses. You need to give a level of safety, that feeling that they can let go of that control.
And I
Yeah.
think to add on to that too, we talk about wanting, whether it's our clients, our horse, our friends, our family, we talk about them wanting to trust us. But I also feel like the old saying, like, lead by example. If you
Hmm.
want to be trustworthy, you need to show that you're trusting of
Yes.
your team, your horse, your partner, whatever. And I think
Don't
that,
micromanage.
yeah, not micromanaging and kind of, trusting in your partner and letting them shine where they're good at shining
Hmm.
is such an important part of leadership, leading by example.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. I think what's interesting about ballroom dancing, it's in ballroom, you're either the leader or the follower. There's no question. And for me, it's like if we're thinking about hats, like I always think about what hat am I wearing in this moment, right?
Yep.
So if I'm going to be following and as a ballroom dancer, I really have to put the hat on that that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to stay
Mhm.
with doing that and then moving in that moment of doing that. But what I'm hearing you say here is with horses, it's both. Sometimes you're
Yeah.
leading and sometimes you're following. And I
Yep.
think like probably one of the most important ingredients here is presence, is that
Hmm.
Yes.
you are present to the moment to
Hmm.
see what does this moment mean for me? Does it mean
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
leading or does it mean I'm following? And like that is a skill set in and of itself, is to be
Yes.
Absolutely.
fully present. And I bet you like when you're out in the mountains, it's so much easier to be present there
Yeah.
than sitting here at my desk. I have my phone, I
Hmm.
have
Yeah.
my drink, I have 75 things I can open up, like when you guys are out there in it, you're feeling it, you're on the horse,
Hmm.
like it's a whole different experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great word to use, as presence, because I think as a leader, if you're translating this into humans, you have to be a present leader to know when to fall back and when to guide, because that's I think a big skill that a lot of people struggle with in, let's say management positions, there's this idea of like taking over. And if you don't let somebody ever show you that they're capable, it leads to a lot of resentment and it leads to anxiety from both ends. And so being able to learn, when should be the time that I'm giving them this space and when should be the time that I'm helping them out is really important.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm going to tell you a little story. You're not going to like this, but
Oh no.
my friend, my friend not too long ago asked me if I would like to go horseback riding with her. My answer was this: I'm busy that day.
Oh,
Oh,
I said I'm busy that day. She goes, I didn't even tell you what day it was. I go, I'm busy
I
that
know.
day.
shame.
Busy that day. It's scary. Like I
It is
just think
scary.
about like just even the height of getting on that horse at this
Totally.
age, at this advanced age that I'm at. I just don't think I could get on the horse.
Yeah, I understand. I don't think either of us are upset by that answer
No.
because we understand, especially if you've never grown up with it, it's very difficult to come into a space where an animal is so big, has so many opinions. It's like riding a bike, but with opinions and thoughts
Yeah,
for
a
themselves.
danger bike. And
So
like the fear is valid. Like
totally.
I've broken my ribs, my leg,
Oh my God.
I've done some things.
ankles, you name it. Like it's a dangerous sport. But what I can like tell you is I encourage you to do it and just like go to a facility or a place that like gives you good vibes that they're like they have good
You feel
horses
comfortable
and
with.
that they're gonna like take your safety as like highest consideration and
Yeah.
you won't regret it because
Yeah.
you'd be really quite surprised at how horses will actually feel that you're fearful and then instead of like taking advantage of you they'll actually take care of you.
And I always say, like, say it out loud. Like, tell them what you're feeling because it will lower your own heart rate. It'll lower your own, nervous system to be able to just even voice that anxiety. And then that can help like create a better mutual relationship.
They're smart creatures.
They're
Yeah.
very intuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, I love learning about this, but I think I'd rather get up to speak in front of an audience of 1 million people than get on a horse.
Yeah, well, I'm on the opposite end of the
I think
spectrum. I'd
I,
rather be on a horse than do that.
I
Just
think
like both.
yeah, I don't know. It's just the whole thing's making me uncomfortable. But let's move on from the uncomfortability of this moment because
Yes.
what else can we learn from horses?
So I think we've talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to say intuition. Intuition is so important when it comes to leadership with horses and people. You need to create, this space where both of you are working together and creating a solid partnership that's going to avoid you getting hurt, avoid mental distress on both ends. And so you have to be a bit of more of an intuitive person to know when to do more and when to do less. For example, I can think of a horse that I recently just worked with, and he was a strong opinions, had big feelings. I'm going to say that. And we were in a situation that I couldn't exactly just like let him have those feelings. And so I had to be very intuitive to what was causing him these big feelings. So when I say big feelings, he was basically running around trying to knock me over. And not because he was trying to be mean, he was so nervous and so scared in that moment that it didn't matter where I was, it didn't matter what was going around, he needed to get out of it. And I didn't have an opportunity to get him out of that situation in that moment. So instead, I had to reflect and use my own intuition to try and figure out what is causing such a severe reaction in this moment. So I made sure I was looking around me and looking at all of the things that were happening. And I noticed that he got even more distressed when other horses walked by and were leaving him. And so my intuition was telling me, this horse is very herd bound. So for anybody who doesn't know, horses, they run in herds and they're not solitary creatures. They're very community minded and they work together to create, an ecosystem that works for them. And so when they're put on their own. They're forced to be in, a little bit of that fight or flight because they have less defense when it's just one of them, and they're more likely to have, a predator come and take them out. So their brains
Oh.
work that way. And so all of a sudden, when I'm watching this horse get even more panicked when horses leave it, the first thing that I thought was, this horse is really herd bound. He's nervous that he doesn't have a buddy. That's what's really setting him off. And so I worked through that where I was like, all right, let's just try and make it so that I'm part of his herd, where he sees me as something that can help protect him in this moment and part of his community. And so I think that can be really important. And it didn't come in 2 minutes that he was calm and relaxed. I don't want it to sound like that. But it did work out throughout probably a 15-20 minute period where we could settle him down, that he stopped trying to run me over, number one, which kept me. And number two, he started to look to me for guidance of when he went, I'm really nervous about this. What do I do? And he was willing to listen to my guidance of, no, we're going to stop moving our feet. No, we're going to move our feet. We're going to go over here. And he stopped looking at the validation through other horses and started looking for validation through me. And that was just through the intuition of what was causing this stress. And I think as leaders, we have to do that with, whoever's underneath us too, because if somebody's just showing signs of anxiety and stress, and it just gets elevated and builds, but we can't find a way to kind of find that common ground to be able to reduce that, then we're setting them up for failure too.
Yeah, I mean, I think like part of that is the communication, right?
Hmm.
It seems like so much harder to talk to horses than it does to talk to humans, because we
See,
can
I
like,
feel the other opposite.
I don't know, like how are you communicating with them?
Body
That's
language.
body language.
Body language is everything.
Yeah.
And I think I would argue, and I don't know if you feel the same way, it's easier to talk to a horse than it is to a human because horses won't lie. They can't lie to you about anything. Their body tells you everything that's happening, everything that's going on in that brain of theirs. You may not be able to know the exact thought patterns or exactly what it is, but you know where they're feeling things because their ears, their eyes, their body tension all tells you. Whereas we can get caught up sometimes with humans with their words, where let's just do an example of somebody looks very upset, you'll go and ask them, I'm fine, and oh no, I don't worry about me, I'm okay. There's a little bit more of that communication barrier through our words because we're listening to what they're saying, not maybe what their body's telling us.
I mean, the bottom line is that humans need to become better communicators.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There it is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of this is that the leader, the one in charge, needs to set the stage for that to happen easily, right? If this
Hmm.
person
Hmm.
cannot communicate what they are doing, well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why they don't feel safe to communicate that
Yes.
information. They are able to communicate. Everyone's able to use their words at this point. As an adult, you talk to a little kid, you're like, use
Yeah.
your words. Like you can use your words to tell me what's wrong. Like that's a conversation you have with a 3-year-old. Not a
The funny thing is, when you mention that, sometimes it's not about you either. The safety was broken before you got there. And so now they have that innate fear, even if it wasn't something that you've done. We see that in horses a lot. You can
yeah.
talk to that you've seen more kind of cases that way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I guess like in the sense of like if you're going into a situation where there's already like a predisposed fear that maybe you didn't create, it just makes that like presence again that much more important because you can either go into a situation, it's like there's a crisis at work, something's happening. You can either go into that situation and de-escalate it, or you can go in and you can add energy on top of it.
Hmm.
And that like presence and emotional regulation becomes like ultimately 10 times more important in like situations where there's already a pre-stressor involved that maybe doesn't even include you at all,
Yep.
to be able to step in and then change the vibe of the room or bring down the energy, the stress, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. And that's a skill of being able to walk right into the fire and then to cool it down.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
a lot of what you do with horses. They'll come in and they may have a bad experience, not with you, but with somebody else. And they will be, like anticipating something bad happening. And that in those moments, you have to be extra, extra calm, extra friendly, extra like disintimidating or unintimidating, whatever you want to call it, because when you go into a situation and people are already anticipating it to go bad or it's already bad and they're not sure how it's going to get better, if you want to be a true leader, I really think horses teach us this every single day is you have to ride the horse that shows up, deal with the situation that you have, and then step in there consistently and bring it down to a level where everyone can think clearly and calmly and safely.
Yeah, because
Wow.
they're just reacting at that point, and same with people when
Yeah.
they're in stress. They're not thinking, they're not using critical thinking skills, they're reacting.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So we talked about communications, presence, consistency. There's so many things that
Yep.
we were learning here. What's one final thought as far as what we're learning from horses and leadership? Any final thoughts?
I think looking at how you lead your crew, your horse, your team, whatever you want to call it, and like generally breaking it down to am I being a leader right now?
Hmm.
Or am I being a boss? Am I being a dictator? Am I being critical? Like, I think a lot of that comes down to like self-reflection and self-awareness.
Yes.
And I think, even beyond the horse world, self-regulation, especially nowadays with these thingies,
Yeah.
we're exposed to so much every single day, all the time, and we go through a plethora of emotions. And I feel like most people go around and they're like literally a beehive, like
Yeah.
so much chaos and so much tension in their mind and in their body. And I think final thoughts is one of the most incredible things that I know I've personally learned from horses is that self-regulation of my emotions.
Hmm.
And then going into spaces with a conscious, I guess, intention of, am I going into this situation to dictate everybody and be the boss, or am I going in there to offer leadership and guidance from a kind perspective? And I always feel like at the end of the day, someone who leads by example and with integrity and with kindness is always going to be the person that your team, your family, your friends, your horse is drawn to.
Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of close that and add on to it, we talk about leadership, a lot of people think that means you're in charge, you're the boss. But I think leadership is quiet. I don't think it's this loud, biggest in the room. It's that quiet confidence, that quiet movement and self-reflection, like you say,
Yeah.
that people naturally gravitate to, which then puts you in a position that you're a boss. It's not because you're telling everyone you're the
Mhm.
boss. It's not because you're deciding every situation. It's just that quiet confidence in yourself and the situation at hand that brings people ease.
Yeah. I love this. I can tell you I learned something today. I definitely
Oh,
learned
good.
something. I learned something. And I think that the takeaway for me is that it's the give and take.
Mhm.
It's the being present and playing in the moment. And I was trying to
Mhm.
liken it to like something else, ballroom dancing.
Yes,
No, it's
totally.
not ballroom dancing. It's not ballroom dancing. You know what it is? It's being married. Like that was the best, the best thing.
Compromise.
Yeah, it is. It's like
It
if
is
you
give
were
and
to
take.
say, it's the best to me it's the best analogy, right? Because
Yeah.
as a married person and or if you're in a relationship, right? It's the give, it's the take. Sometimes you're going to lead, sometimes you're going to step behind. And you
Hmm.
have to do this constant I want to say dance, but it's definitely not ballroom.
It is.
It's some sort of a
Yeah.
dance, right?
Yeah.
Where you get to be leader and follower all this at the same time, but so it's really about presence, intuition, and communication. That's what it's about.
Yes.
And so we can liken that to our when you ride a horse or when you work with horses, we can liken it to when you are married, and you can liken it to leading a team. You're never in a place where you're completely like the one that is the
Hmm.
micromanager leader, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Hmm.
give and take. It's a setting the stage. The leader sets
Absolutely.
the stage, but there are a lot
Absolutely.
of players that come onto that stage, and everybody's part is equally important. And if we're doing the dance right, we're getting all those parts to move in harmony and
Mhm.
uh, with high energy and positivity so that everybody can move to success. So I love this
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you guys for joining me today. Where can our audience find out more about your podcast and what you're doing?
So the podcast is called Uncinched. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio Music, basically most places you find podcasts. It's also on my website if you're just wanting to look through there, which is stableinstincts.com or .ca, doesn't matter. I have both. You can look through there for where you can find it.
We're on most forms of social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, if you want to follow along there as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for being guests on the Stay on Course podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes.
We had a great
It
time.
was awesome. Thank you so much.